Hey, Bones, how you going? Yeah, my bad. My bad, Bones. Alright, let's see. As I wait for notifications to go up, make sure everything's testing well. Can you hear me? So far, it sounds like audio should be fine. Let me get some water. I think coffee irritated my voice a little bit. I also made the mistake of not. I did drink coffee, but it was very just standard coffee. I should have probably drank some more espresso. It's funny because I did have espresso K cups back there, but I gotta be honest. During breakfast, I kind of forgot I was gonna stream today, which is weird because I scheduled it last night, and throughout the week, I did think to myself, I'm gonna stream on Thursday. Now I'm gonna stream on Friday in case people have plans for Halloween, but I'm gonna do it Thursday. And so for the literally for the whole week, I was like, all right, Thursday I'll do the stream. I have the time. I'm ahead on the review. The a particular Halloween themed video is going up tomorrow, and it's like 97% done. That's why I'm like, all right, I'm good to go. Just gotta do a couple of little tweaks, and then it's ready to be rendered. Um, and then I don't know what happened. Fog headed again. It's one of those things where people had like this conspiracy theory about COVID fog, I think it's called, where people have said that ever since getting COVID, um, throughout the time of its peak of the pandemic back in either 2020 or 2021, maybe the beginnings of 2022, whatever. If you caught like one of those strains, despite feeling better, you have like this residual. Sorry, for a second I thought I heard rumbling, and I'm like, are we about to get hit with an quick live on stream? That'd actually be kind of cool. Um, so yeah, I did catch a case of COVID. I remember back in like January of 2021. It's actually this case of COVID that got me fired from my retail job. Um, because you know, at the time I didn't report it, and then later on when I did report it, they told me, "Well, how many days did you start feeling weird?" And I told them the exact days, and they're like, "Oh, well, that day that you said you were feeling fine, you actually technically weren't, so you lied. So you're gone." And I was like, "All right, fuck you guys." Later on, I find out that a bunch of people were gonna get laid off anyway, so I was like, "All right, they were just looking for an out," including a 26-year-old vet of that store. Dude was at the store for 26 years and he got let go just like that. I was like, all right, fuck you guys. You guys didn't care. Long COVID, hey, Spartan 107. Yeah. That's the only conspiracy theory that I kind of buy into is the long COVID symptoms. And the main one being like that fogginess of the head where sometimes you're just like I was thinking about this one thing or remembering this one thing, and then I don't know where you just forgot, and then later you remember, you're like, what the hell is that? And that kind of happened with the stream, where the whole week I was like, Thursday I'm gonna stream. Last night I created the thumbnail and I scheduled it, lined up the topics. I have the Google Keep pulled up. Actually, I don't have the Google Keep pulled up. I have it created. That's what I'm saying. I have it created, and then out of nowhere, while making breakfast, I was just thinking it was just gonna be an average day. I knew I was gonna edit. I knew I was gonna, you know, chill and start playing around with play more with the Batman Returns figures that I will be filming the review for this weekend. Um, but for some weird reason, I completely forgot I was streaming. I was literally remembering last night and then today as I'm like making breakfast, eating breakfast, watching my video during breakfast, yada yada yada. It was finally when I sat down that I was like, oh yeah, I'm streaming today. And generally, when I'm able to remember that I'm streaming while making my breakfast and also making my coffee, pouring my coffee, I make a coffee that at least is going to be a little bit stronger on the caffeine to help me with the energy. Didn't do that today. So that's why I'm a little like, yeah, like that, because I did make coffee. I did drink a good amount of coffee, but unfortunately, I don't know what it is, but it just didn't hit me energy wise. There's a part of me that almost kind of wishes that I would have like a Red Bull or something here near me, but I legit don't have any energy drinks in the house. The most I have is like juice and then my water. And I already finished my coffee. And I'm off the. Sadly, like I can't do 2 cups of coffee to for the caffeine because the caffeine will hit, but you know what also is gonna hit? Acid reflux. But if I start to try to chug a second cup of coffee, I've tried it before, especially during my retail days. I get really bad like acid reflux. I'm like I can't do it. I can't chug coffee like that. My girlfriend can do it, but I can't. It's like Jesus. So and it's already like 2 in the afternoon. I remember that a lot of people recommend to cut off coffee at 2. Otherwise, even if it's been like 10 or so hours, you technically still have if you keep drinking coffee past this point, 2 p.m. here in West Coast time, um, you're technically like there's like a half life of the coffee where it starts to dilute, but you technically still have caffeine in your system even going into like 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and it'll legit affect you trying to go to sleep if you keep drinking coffee past this point. So if you want to like deprive caffeine out of your system as best as possible for when you go to bed, 2 p.m. is usually where they say hey, don't drink coffee after 2 p.m. Just cut it off right there. And then on top of that, like my voice is a little, I don't know why, it's like not properly warmed up. And I have these little moments like this where I'm like, is it because lack of energy or is it because of lack of motivation? So lately I've been feeling a little existential regarding like content creation, whether it be the live streams, whether it be do I have this set properly? Live chat, yeah. Whether it be the live streams, whether it be the YouTube channel, because I got to be honest, guys. I've been pushing, but there have been times recently where I've been feeling a little bit of the strain. Not energy wise, but more so motivation wise. And one of the contributing factors, before I get into the topics, which I now have formally pulled up, one of those factors is in fact money. Things have been getting a little bad, money wise, to the point where now my girlfriend filed for unemployment herself. She's getting turned down left and right. I'm getting turned down left and right, even for some of the simpler stuff, like literally working at a goddamn Raising Cane's. I tried applying, and having heard from them. I applied for a dishwashing position in like a goddamn Applebee's, I think it was, and they turned me down to wash dishes. So yeah, there's, I'm trying to keep the content on the channel afloat, but obviously to like cover figures, you kind of need the money for the figures, because I don't get stuff sent to me. I don't get stuff, previewed towards me. I don't get special treatment like some other YouTubers, etc., etc. Everything's paid out of pocket. Even without going into detail, mainly because I don't know exactly the details, the recent instances where I have gotten something sent to me for free from a site, the site of which wasn't the manufacturer of the figure. Keep that in mind. Like, that's the thing, is like, I think so far the only company that has sent me a figure to review, and it's the figure that they created, like that company created, was in fact Inart with the 1/12th Christian Bale Batman. And not only is the figure amazing, but I also really appreciate them sending out the figure. And from what I can tell, we're me and Inart are still in good standing, and I've been sort of talking to them about how how the 1/12 line is coming along, and currently, I guess I could say this because it's not technically not private or anything, especially since they are keeping hush, but basically they said that at the time right now we don't really have much else to discuss except what's already been discussed in either on the stage or live from the Winterfest event that happened not too long ago. whatever they have published on the social media platforms. And then technically one of the topics that we'll tackle much more broadly a little bit later on was a interview that Johnny, the representative over at Inart, did with content creator Will Foxification, in which they predominantly talked about 1/6 scale, but they did touch on some details regarding the 112 line. With a couple of like sentences, nothing too grand. I think that's probably an expectation to be said, is that they didn't really divulge into any hard-hitting news regarding the 112 line in that interview, but they did kind of touch upon what properties they're focusing 112th on, how they're gonna like diversify their workflow, etc., etc. But like I said, we'll get into that much more broadly. And so far as I can tell, I'm still on their like, I don't want to say list, but like still within their attention regarding covering the 112 line, to where maybe in the future, once we get closer to the release dates of certain upcoming figures, whether it be stuff from the Dark Knight Rises like Catwoman, or other things that they got coming down the pipeline that's like comic based, like the Dark Knight's Metal, or Arkham Origins Batman from the video games. Hopefully we'll reconnect to see if I can get a unit to cover on the channel for you guys. But right now there's nothing certain. There's nothing set in stone. So that's it. So that's literally one company that has sent me something that they directly made to cover on the channel. Then we have a website that have sent me a couple of units that are made by a different company. And that, site has been dormant. I've hit them up frequently on Instagram, and within the past, I want to say like 2 months, there's only been one reply, and the reply was literally just them saying, I'm sorry, we've been busy. And then that's it. They didn't like clarify if they're going to be like being able to put me down for something, or if there's something from their site that I can cover that they can send over or anything like that. They almost just like disregard. It's for lack of a better term, it's been kind of flaky, to where I'm like, to the point where even my last message to them was like, hey, if you guys don't want to talk anymore, just let me know. That's all I ask for. Yeah, just transparency. Like, if you're saying, oh, this is not working out, just tell me. Don't just leave me on like red. And frankly, they've been leaving me on red, and I'm like, this is annoying. And eventually I have to move on, and I'll be like, all right, it would have been, full transparency. It would be nice to get stuff free of charge, just so I can cover on the channel and I can provide content on the channel. But so far, it looks like I'll have to pay out of pocket for some of these products to cover on the channel, because I generally do want them. But I also have to be reasonable with how hard finances are, and look at the fact that there's some other sites that provide it a little cheaper, whether it be the product's price completely, or the shipping costs, or just the fact that maybe the pricing of everything together is the same, but the other site is faster. And I'll be like, well, sorry, dudes, I gotta go over there if you guys are not gonna be able to like, provide incentive for me to stick with you guys by waiving the charge or offering a discount like an affiliate link or anything like that. And I'm like, that's just how this business works. And when you guys keep leaving me on red on Instagram, it's like, all right, eventually I got to move on. Like in my book, you guys are done with me, I guess. Because if you guys really, and I'm sorry, but like every time that I say, I kind of like follow up, they always say that, oh, we're in the process of moving, oh, we got this event, and I'm like, then you gotta hire like a correspondent, like a secretary or receptionist to handle these emails, these logistical things. Because so far I get the vibe that whoever's handling the Instagram is probably someone who models, who also draws up things. I'm like, all right, I appreciate you guys trying to wear many hats, but at the same time, you need someone to wear this designated hat. That way I can get a response from one day to the next. And I'm like, why are you, I'm just confused. So going into the end game of this year, I'm realizing that what I thought were going to be established connections with certain companies that were going to have a symbiotic relationship in the form of me getting materials or items to cover on the channel, because it's obviously it's for someone from the outside looking in, it's pretty easy to label this as, oh, you want this free stuff, and I'm like, well, yeah, I want free stuff, but the free stuff has a purpose, and the purpose is to do a video of it on the channel. A video that requires hours and hours of my free time to film, edit, record, voiceover, bullet point in some cases, and then the editing work in terms of how much there is to cut, color correction, any graphics, music, sound effects, putting all that out. I could be over here playing video games. I'm like, I'm not. And that's the thing. There's been times from certain companies that have offered to send me a figure, but the figure has nothing to do with Batman or Spider-Man, and they were offering it for free. Okay, you know what? I'll say it. Inart, it was at one point gonna send me a 1/12 figure, but it was from Black Myth Wukong. I told him no, because even though it was gonna be a free figure, I told them like, hey, I don't cover this on the channel, and I frankly don't have that strong of an interest in the game. Eventually I'll play the game. I don't know when. It looks interesting, and I heard great things about it. I also heard that it's incredibly hard, so I don't know if my patience is gonna reach its threshold with that, because it's got that Dark Souls or Souls-like sort of approach to the combat, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. To me, what was more important was the fact that they wanted to spend money and time and logistic resources in sending me a figure free of charge that I legitimately didn't have intention on doing a video on. I didn't have the motivation or the drive to do a video on, because it's of a property that doesn't get covered on this channel. It's going to feel so out of left field to post a video of this figure on the channel, but just because I got it for free, I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I legit told him, no thanks. Send it to someone who will cover 1/12 figures across the board, regardless of whether they're Batman or Spider-Man, or from a video game, or from a movie, or from a cult property of sorts, and they'll cover it. And that will be better money and time spent on your guys' end towards that. Don't send it to me. I reject it. And that's because it's like, I cover Batman and Spider-Man stuff. This Black Myth Wukong figurine, it's not going to get covered on the channel. And I'm not going to just accept it just to get a free figure. I'm like, no, send it to somebody else. And so these connections that I was establishing to hopefully, like I said, build that symbiotic relationship of I get material to cover on the channel free of charge. That way it's not a hamper on my wallet, and then whatever money I'm accruing in my wallet, whether it be YouTube or me selling things, or God forbid I ever do get a legitimate job, which I've been trying, will go towards the materials that I know I'm far and away from ever establishing a connection for, aka Marvel Legends, McFarlane Toys. If, God forbid, when Mattel starts pulling out the DC stuff, unless I can hit up a storefront that can hook me up, there's never going to be a connection there for those figures. They are in no way, shape, or form deprived of ad space, of promotion. Like, they don't need the promotion. They're fucking McFarlane Toys, Mattel, and Hasbro. They're going to be fine. But with companies like Inart, or in some cases maybe LPZZ down the line, who knows, it's a symbiotic relationship where I get the material to cover the channel. They get promotion, especially when the figure ends up being as amazing as it is. Such as the case with LPZZ. But what I thought was established connections a few months ago is slowly but surely starting to, frankly, fall through. So I'm kind of exiting the year thinking, wow, it didn't happen. You know what I mean? So unless there's like a very huge, miraculous turnaround of some sort, I'm in a place where I just have to accept that it ain't going to happen. Everything has to be paid out of pocket, and this pocket's not looking good. And so that's why I'm like, all right, if there was one sacrifice that I will probably have to make here, sacrificial decision, if you will, that I'm gonna have to make here in the next couple of weeks or something, realistically, to pay off my storage unit, pay off phone bills, pay off or have income for like food and sustenance, things like that. I'm thinking of bowing out of the Hot Toys hobby. So canceling pretty much all of the Hot Toys orders that I have outstanding, which I think are literally only 2 now. I think I literally only have 2. And it's funny because one of which was just kind of like out in the ether up until literally last night. Last night, the blogger... Actually, this wasn't going to be a topic, but I guess I'll just look at it really, really briefly. Because I was mentioning like, oh, canceling all outstanding Hot Toys orders, which are technically just 2. Well, it was 3, but actually I think last week I did cancel 1. Because I was like, all right, yeah, because this one that I canceled, it was about to charge me, but because of current situations, I was like, all right, if I was to give one up, it'll be this one, which was the BVS Batfleck 2.0, the deluxe edition, the new 2.0 remake remaster, and I canceled it because I technically already have a Batfleck from the Suicide Squad in my storage unit. And also because what kind of put me at ease was knowing now that Inart is working on their own 1/6 scale Batfleck. And I'm like, well, there's going to be an option later down the line. So canceling this guy doesn't really hurt me. But what could potentially hurt me are the 2 outstanding ones that I have so far, which is the Artisan Joaquin Phoenix Joker, which has been released overseas, but I have not gotten the email from Sideshow saying that it's about to arrive. So it's probably still mid-Pacific Ocean somewhere. And then the other one had not been released, have not heard about it whatsoever up until literally last night. I literally woke up to this. I was like, wow, this is crazy. Literally woke up to these images. Andrew Garfield, The Amazing Spider-Man, has released 11 hours ago, so at 3 a.m. It's funny because I was actually falling asleep at that time, so I could have seen this, but I didn't have Facebook open. But yeah, this released last night. So it was and I personally do think it looks good. It does look a little overly bright. I do remember like the colors being a bit more muted in the movie. So that's probably the only criticism I have is that. And it's funny because I think the prototype photos did look like muted like they did in the movie. So that's why it looked pretty solid to me. Now these blogger photos, I'll say we got a trade-off. We have a bit of a trade-off, which is that the suit texture and material does look good, except for a little bit of the crimping that's happening on the shoulder there. But the brightness was peaked up a little bit. I feel like they made him a little brighter than he was in the movie. Even those lenses are looking just a little too yellowy. They're kind of reminding me a little bit of Mafex lenses. And by that, I don't mean plasticky. I just mean the color. I strictly am referring to just the color. In terms of the materials, though, it looks like a Hot Toys mask. It does. But I'm just referring to the color. Right here, though, it actually does look kind of neat. And I don't know if this is considered a hot take, but I actually really do like the head sculpt. It doesn't... I recognize it doesn't look 100% like Andrew Garfield. It's probably borrowing a little bit more of the Amazing Spider-Man 2 that came out a little while that they were trying to coincide with No Way Home, that version. But it has enough tweaks on it that I'm like... And quality-wise, it's still superb in terms of looking lifelike. Like this shot right here, it looks like a really, really good Andrew Garfield lookalike human being shrunken down. But that's the emphasis on the phrasing. It looks like a really, really good Andrew Garfield lookalike. Yo, somebody says that he kind of looks a little Jack Quaid-ish. A little bit. Possibly. Yeah. So it's a good lifelike head sculpt. It really is. But it definitely is not super accurate in terms of looking like Andrew Garfield. If anything, we're still probably going to have to wait for like a third party to come up with a much more realistic looking head. And then on top of that, I feel like his hair resembles... I was going to say that his hair looks a bit more like it did in 2 than it did in 1. But now looking at it, I'm like, no. I think they got it right. And like I said, I feel like they just brightened up the suit a little bit too much. It's supposed to be a bit more mitigated. You know, like right there, it looks legitimately realistic, but it just doesn't look accurate to Andrew. That's the trade-off. Right there. And who knows, maybe holding it in person will land a little better. But yeah, this officially released this morning in Hong Kong. So if I pre-ordered through Sideshow, which I did, I'm guessing within a month, I would maybe be a bit optimistic and say that maybe they'll expedite the process to try to get it out before Thanksgiving. That way, they're not left with their asses hanging out going into Thanksgiving, and then when they come back, they're like, "Whoa, we still have all this to do," you know. So yeah, him and artisan Joaquin Phoenix Joker, which came out I think about a month or so ago. So it's possible, knock on wood, that any day now I'll get the email saying, "Hey." In fact, let me just double check, make sure that Sideshow didn't cancel my order out of fucking nowhere like they did with my artisan Anakin, because they did do that. Okay, so far no. I'm looking at it right now. Make sure I'm not showing info. I'm not. All right, good. Yeah. For those of you who don't know the story, long story short, because it truly is kind of a long story, out of nowhere they canceled my artisan Anakin Skywalker figure from that I pre-ordered like last year. No, I'm sorry, that I ordered in 2023, August of 2023, and at the beginnings of this year, halfway through this year, when it finally released, Sideshow charged the full amount on my card without telling me that they were going to charge. Got declined because I didn't have the full amount in the bank. And the next day they canceled my order, and I still didn't get the email saying, "Hey, so and so declined." Because Sideshow, they tell you when they're going to charge, and if they charge and got declined, they send you another email saying, "Hey, it got declined. You got 24 hours to fix this." Never got any of those emails. So there I am, just going about my day, and it's literally a few days later that I go into my Sideshow account, go into out of curiosity, just to visit, just to peek, just to see what I had, and I see the word canceled on my artisan Anakin Joker. I'm like, what the fuck? And yeah, I checked the history, and I'm like, I never got these emails. And I checked to see if they were in my spam or if they were in my other. I literally checked every inbox of every email I have on my Gmail, which includes a Hotmail. I checked the trash. I checked the spam. I checked the junk. I checked everything. Nothing. And like I said, to this day, my theory is that they overbooked. Like when a flight overbooks seats, and sometimes they have to kick people off the flight because they're like, "Oh, we sold too many. So and so got this seat," and then later they're like, "Oh, that's my seat." I think that's what happened when I pre-ordered the fucking thing back in 2023, and I was told that I got it. But apparently, some other people got it there first, and Sideshow didn't know what to do, and they're like, and just canceled without letting me know. Fuck you guys. And that's why I'm like, whatever I have outstanding right now with Sideshow, that is it. After that, I'll take my business elsewhere. Just going to finish off what I have right now, and then that's it. A lot of companies seem to be very afraid of transparency, unfortunately. And we're going to touch base on it a little bit right now with one of the middle topics. Seems rough out there. It's baffling hearing that it's hard for people to find work. Hope something will pop up soon. But wow, especially for the really basic jobs, you wouldn't think it would be so difficult. Well, like I said, if I was to put on a tinfoil hat, I feel like they make it difficult. Because, I mean, I finished high school. I actually have an associate's degree from my community college. I held down I've had work experience in fast food, in retail, in office work. Um, I'm self-disciplined. I set myself deadlines when it comes to like my content creation, this, and that. Why, with all that criteria, why would you reject me for a dishwashing position? Like I said, if I was to tinfoil hat it would be, to give myself a little bit of credit, which I rarely ever do, it would be because I am overqualified. And they don't want that because they know that later down the line, someone who's overqualified with all that experience and all that education will probably start to find ways to maximize efficiency. And again, you hear that, you think, oh, that would be an employee's dream. Now these days, no, because maximizing efficiency also means that later down the line, that person who maximizes efficiency is going to ask for a raise. It's going to ask for more hours so that it balances itself out. They don't want to deal with that shit. They're going to hire little Timmy who just graduated high school and just wants an easy paycheck to blow off and jack off to over the weekend while shooting TikToks. That's what they want. Go to Target. Go to Walmart. What does your average employee look like? Yeah. I rarely see anybody over 40 work at those retail places. Rarely. And when I do, it's a little bit more towards the opposite side of the spectrum when they're more like pushing 60 or 70. And that's because I don't know if they have some kind of seniority or some kind of hookup. I don't know what it is. Or they're just literally quite a few years away from retirement. And they're like, oh, he's already been here. If we let him go now, he has grounds for like a lawsuit or whatever. So we're not going to do that. And also, more employees to hire part-time instead of hiring a couple that will go full-time. And full-time not only is more pay, but also benefits. We don't want to give benefits. Why would we do that? More money out of our pocket? Hell no. Like I said, that's the devil's advocate. That's the tinfoil hat thing that is kind of easy to subscribe to, but is it is there ways to 100% proof? Not necessarily, I understand that, but there's also no way to disprove it. Because like I said, I'm at a loss as to why someone like me doesn't qualify to simply just work a cashier job or a dishwashing job at some of these basic ass places. Especially since some of these places I'm applying here are local. Like, I'm not commuting anywhere. Nothing crazy. So, what are we even talking about, All right. What was the first topic? I guess this one will breeze through a tiny, tiny bit. Did any of you pre-order the Marvel Legends figures that went up? Was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday morning. Because it seems like the Retro Card series has returned in the form of a couple of deep dives, or rather deep cuts regarding certain characters, or in the form of a bit of a reissue / revamp of a existing figure. Before we get to that, we have, some of you may have heard of this creator. His name is Dan Who, who apparently is live right now himself. Huh, that's interesting. But that's not what I want to look into. What I want to look at, if I even remembered to grab this, he did manage to capture, I can't remember if it was live or if it was its own, if it was a separate thing. Oh yeah, I think here it is. So yes, I'll be kind of skimming to this because I don't want to freeboot too much. But Dan Who Reviews did manage to capture pretty much the bulk of the Hasbro Pulse panel over at MCM. I gotta be honest, I'm blanking on what MCM stands for, but it's pretty much London's Comic Con. And so, just like it was foreshadowed on the last fan stream, Dwight from Marvel Legends did in fact go over to London to show off a little bit more of the Marvel Legends stuff. However, and this goes for Hasbro across the board, because not just with Dwight, but also with the rest of the folks that were part of this Marvel Legends panel regarding Star Wars, regarding Transformers, G.I. Joe, they were very unprepared. They were just rapid firing through this thing, but not in the most efficient way possible, to where they were like flipping back and forth between certain slides and misremembering what was coming up next. And I was like, it was just so slapdash that I was like, in some of the Tron figures here towards the end, it was just so slapdash that I'm like, guys, you probably should have just skipped this. You should have just skipped London. But some contracts more than likely would have been were probably ironed out in order to make this whole thing happen. Now, within the Marvel Legends section of the panel, they started off with, like I said, the bulk of the whole thing was really the retro card series, right? So as we skim through here, we have a couple of characters that I quite honestly don't really care about. One of which is the Owl. I don't know how many of you guys are even aware of this character. I hear he's like weird. I don't really know that much about the character, so trust me, this guy kind of went over my head. I am a bit more knowledgeable of the next, actually not even the next character, Hypno Hustler. Funkadelics, and I'm digging the fro, but again, never heard of this guy. I have legitimately no idea who this guy is. I'm sorry, but they were very easy skips. And so my attention was brought forth a little bit more when tackling Spider Venom. I do like the little bit of the chain accessory that looks like it's a bendy wire. We do have a neat little rocker bulk right here for the body. So I do like that the buck is looking a little bit on the cleaner side, a little bit on the nicer side. It's looking like maybe this might be our definitive buck for any Spidey characters. He does at least have butterflies, so we'll see exactly what entails with that. And after we kind of covered through these showings that were at this panel directly lifted from this live stream, I'll go over to like some official promo photos that were released during the pre-order session yesterday. But yeah, Spider Venom was the next one with that super edgy haircut right there. And then the next one was, I believe, another Spider character. Yes, Uncanny Spider-Man, aka Nightcrawler as Spider-Man, pretty much. With the tail, the three-fingered hands, the sword. I do like the color clash, although the ears are a little off-putting, but of course that's part of the design, so I thought that was interesting. And of course the tail is out there. I do like that he comes with a little cool purple effect right there. I feel like we've been kind of overdue for figures to come with effects pieces. I do think that we should at least try to bring that back a little bit to kind of provide a little bit of not only showmanship to the figures, but also to pack in the value for some of these figures that are costing somewhere north of $25, maybe $27, $28, whatever the case may be. After that, he made a big hoopla about how they were bringing back Emma Frost, but this time she's in diamond form. Okay, according to him, it's because they apparently botched the previous release of this character. I wouldn't know, never really picked up the character, didn't really, have any insight on that. And then after that, I think they kind of touched upon the Sentinel again. I could be wrong, but yeah, they really went out. Yeah, Sentinel. So you have the Marvel Sentinels variants there, in like another like VHS style box. And again, empty slide right there. Dwight is like, Dwight even starts throwing some blame on over to Dan. But yeah, and then after that, I think that's really about it. That's why, like I said, and then we go over to Star Wars. So I watched this thing in its entirety because at the time I was, like I said, editing in the background, so I was kind of listening to it and skimming through it. And there was just like a lot of awkward pauses and moments to where I'm like, guys, if you guys were not prepared, just don't do the show. Just don't do it, and kind of save it for pull in a Nintendo and just kind of do your own thing, like they tend to do. So now let me pull up Preturnia's page to then look at some more cleaner looks of these figures that went up for pre-order, including the one that was technically already shown off a week prior at here we go. Here we go. Oh, this is beautiful. This is right. So all 6 of these figures went up for pre-order yesterday morning, including the one that was shown during the Marvel Legends Pulse, the Hasbro Pulse Marvel Legends fan stream with Dan and Dwight before going over to London, which was the Spider-Man 2099 retro card, the revamp, remake, remaster, whatever it is that you want to call it. And so all 6 of these went up, and also the Cardiac. They also showed that off during the live stream. You can tell, obviously, which ones I would gravitate towards, and as such, I did put down pre-orders for the bottom 3, all 3 of the Spidey characters. However, I only did it through the sites that don't charge right away, obviously, because I'm like, all right, this is still Marvel Legends. I still have my beef with them, but at the same time, there's ever so often they get one right. Recently, been digging the Daredevil figures, even though I have my qualms with Punisher, but the Daredevil figure is borderline a good foundation of where to move forward, especially the neck piece. The neck piece is something that I'm like, something really cool feeling about that. So, and I have quite a bit of, for lack of a better term, disdain towards the original 2099 figure, that to be able to directly compare that pre-existing retro card 2099 from like 2021, I might have that wrong. It could be either 2020 or 2021 when that original one came out. Versus this guy, I almost feel like I can say right now wholeheartedly it's going to be a very night and day difference. I can't shake the feeling that it's going to be a very night and day difference. So I'm looking forward to seeing what it does, even though it's already got one major problem, which is that it doesn't have clawed hands. He's got clawed gestures, but he doesn't have the claws in him. So I'm like, why is that missing? So we'll see. But yeah, I did put down pre-orders for these 3. Thankfully, they were still available for pre-order for when I woke up. I didn't have to wake up even earlier for that, so good to see that. And again, I did it through Amazon and through BBTS, sites that don't necessarily pre-order directly. That don't charge you directly. So that was the only real way that I was going to do that. But like I said, from a presentational standpoint, you guys either need to hire someone who's better at IT or just, like I said, handle things on your own accord. Hey, CM Bronk, welcome to the stream. I say Bronk? Bronk. Leprechaun Wolverine. Oh, is that where it's from, Skelly? The Amazing Fantasy one? Is that the book that they're using? It looked familiar, but I just couldn't. Not only could I not pin exactly which book it was, but even if I had an intuition feeling or a call to make, I wouldn't make it because somehow, some way, every time I think it's a buck and I say, oh, I think it's this one, the people in the comment section of whatever that video is just go ape shit saying, no, it's actually this. And I'm like, I give up. I fucking give up. Now I know what Bob Wolf feels like whenever he puts out one of his handheld reviews and he's like, I'm pretty certain it's this, and then at the last second, people in the comment section just like, actually, I'm like, all right. After a while. After a while, it gets kind of exhausting handling Yeah, in the main let's put it this way: the main drive that as to why I pre-order those Spideys is to do content. And out of the three, that the only one that, like I said, piqued my interest just to collect, if I was to hypothetically not be doing the content, it would be 2099 Spidey. Because the other two, I'm like, all right, they're like Nightcrawler as, and also who's Spider Venom? I know this is gonna sound terrible, but who is taking up the mantle of Spider Venom? Because I don't think it's Peter. Right? Wait, I should probably type Spider Venom Marvel. Because then I was getting a. So it's basically Peter and Venom getting together instead of Peter and the symbiote. So it's the symbiote going back to Peter after already being Venom. So confusing. It's like Dragon Ball Z type shit. Okay. Okay, so let me start pulling up stuff for the second topic, which is gonna be a bit of a doozy here. Much more complex than led on to believe. Just getting my wins here. My wins. Let me see if I have the live stream pulled up, because that's mainly where it's going to come from. Here we go. Let's pull up the cesspool that is Reddit. It truly is a cesspool, and I'm trying to determine whether or not I want to continue being part of that cesspool, because man, oh man, I've been posting some comments that I thought sounded pretty legit, and then like piranhas, everyone just comes out like Jesus. Like downvoted like shit. What happened? Let me go over to my saved posts. Yeah, here we go. Okay. I think for now that's good. I really hate you can't. Can I? Okay, I'll keep it up like this if I can. Oh, perfect. I'll do it like that. All right, cool, cool. Du-du-du-du. So, what was it, last week? I think yeah, streamed exactly 7 days ago. We had McFarlane Toys doing another McFarlane Toys show episode live stream. And at first, I was actually a little worried that I was gonna miss it because I was actually kind of busy that day. I was out of town already, so I was like, all right, I wasn't gonna be able to like get back on time to be able to cover it. Only to then be relieved, and you could construe that as a bit of a negative, a bit of a con, a bit of what's the opposite of a compliment? When I realized that it was actually going to be a themed episode that was all about Fallout, both for the video games and for the upcoming season 2 of the TV show. The TV show of which I really did like. I did watch season 1. Me and my girlfriend finished season 1. Did enjoy it, and we're on board for season 2. I'm not over the moon about it. I've seen some people say that, giving it glowing reviews. There's something a little off-putting about the editing and like the timing of some of the jokes that either go on for a little too long. I don't know what it is, but there's something about the tone that at times I'm like, all right, guys, wrap it up. You know, like you guys, I know it's trying to like be awkward or be tongue-in-cheek. Where I remember, I don't know if it's because in the game, I'm able to control the timing since I'm more in control of practically everything else. But in a TV show setting, when you're at the behest of like the editors or the actors with their timing, it's like some jokes I'm like, I feel it could have been funnier if I was in control of how I act the way that I do, whether it be with violence or whether it be with something else in the game. And therefore, I think it just ends up being funnier because I think about some of the jokes in Fallout Season 1, and I'm like, yeah, these jokes are in the game, but for some reason, why is it that they just feel kind of drawn out in the show? And I'm like, I think it's because of the timing. There's this veneer in the game where being in first person and me being like walking around and looking at the character, and the character's just like, what are you doing? I think that to me creates this layer that just arguably falls or lands a little better and a bit better timed and funnier to me than it did in the show. But overall, really enjoyed the show, enjoyed the cast. There's some interesting liberties that they take in terms of the lore, but to me, I'm like, I never really felt insulted. At the end, I'm like, I'm left intrigued and, hooked to be like, okay, what's this character going to do now? So I'm digging that. And we're going into like the obvious of settings for season 2, one of the more popular ones. You could already guess which one it is. So yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm on board. Sign up. So you can see right here that the bulk of the McFarlane Toys live stream was Fallout related, with John from McFarlane Toys fully decked out with his Vault Dweller get up, the Pip Boy, etc., all that stuff. So good to see that he's in good spirits with it. But again, this was definitely, I literally watched this back to back with the Marvel Legends, the Hasbro panel from the London Comic Con, MCM London, whatever you want to call it. Because again, knowing that it was Fallout themed, I'm like, okay, I want to hear this, listen to what they have to say. But am I really paying hardcore attention to it? Not so much. I listened to this while I was editing. I'm sorry. But the bulk of the whole show was in fact tailored around Fallout. And for the first 15 minutes, and trust me, I'm going to breeze through this because like I said, I don't really want to cover too much of the Fallout stuff here on the channel since it's not a Fallout channel. Sure, it's McFarlane Toys, but it's Fallout. That's why I'm like, all right, some of these figures look good. Some others look a little cheap. Like I said, Dog Meat, I think could have used a little bit added paint decal. The two I don't want to say Paladin, but the two T60 armorized figures do have a bit better weight that feels good to pour $30 to $35 into the overall pricing of the figure. But when you're handling characters like the Ghoul, like Cooper Howard and her first name is Sarah, but I can never remember her last name. But the one with the eye patch, you look at them and you go $30 to $35. I don't know. And the reason for why it sounds like I've already handled the figures in hand is because it is a little strange that on this day, along with the live stream, they're talking about the pre-orders going live, only for me to have discovered the figures already in hand at Target. Locally, I've actually already found these figures. So it's been a bit of a mess of how they handled so far the Fallout stuff, at least the stuff with the show, especially since some of these figures are $30 to $35 and they're like deluxe editions, but then Lucy, who's the main character of the show, gets singled out as an elite edition. So she's 60 and she's got bonus faceplates with the smiling head, bonus backpack and weapon accessories, and then of course dog meat on the side. I'm like, okay. And then we got some little statues of the Pip Boys with the different gestures. One of which I actually already got a few years ago. It's really dusty, so I'm going to try not to get it close to my face because there's a bunch of dust flying off of it. You can see those. Vault 111, if I'm not mistaken, that's from Fallout 4. This is a vinyl Vault Boy that I got like almost 60 to 75% off when I was working at Best Buy because they had it in stock at Best Buy. I used my employee discount and I got it. Oh god, now I got dust all over the place. Oh shit. Yeah, I'm gonna have to clean that up later. But yeah. So now McFarlane's doing them, but that was legitimately vinyl. I don't know if you could tell from like my hand movements. It's kind of weighty. I don't know if these guys are going to be weighty. Hold on. Did they say they're vinyl or they're just going to be hard plastic? Let me see.
So you can pre-order today, or oh, sorry, yeah, the Vault Boys. I have the Vault Boys, of course. You have them? No, I've got them here. Okay, so first up, version 1. This is our Vault Boy doing his little flex pose. This is available today for pre-order at Amazon, Walmart, and Best Buy. And then there will be a lot of stock available at Walmart stores as well. So you can pre-order today, or you can check out your local Walmart to grab your Vault Boy V1. So that's our first Vault Boy. Then we have Vault Boy version 2.
I don't think they're gonna say.
Sassy little pose here, looking cool.
Sassy.
That is available for pre-order today at Amazon and Walmart.com. So again, check out the Fallout brand page on McFarlane.com for all the links. And then he will also be in stores at Walmart. And last but not least, we have, you guessed it, version.
He's probably not gonna say. So my best guess, the best possible thing I can do is probably just go to their site. Let me see if they have a link in the description. They don't. What the? Click here for the stream link. Oh, they copy the tweet into there. Okay, that is strange. Let's just go over to their Twitter. Maybe they have like a dedicated post for it. Cause I don't get it. Yeah, so Lucy is 60 because she's going to be an elite edition, but the others are not elite editions, so they get to be 30 to 35. And like I said, the only one that feels kind of worth it is the... Okay, here we go. I'm going to go on a whim here. Let me click the page. It just says post figure. It doesn't say what material it's made out of. Let me go over to the Walmart and Amazon pages. Specifications. Doesn't say. The fact that it doesn't say means that it's probably made out of the same material as like the movie Maniacs, and if it is, then that means it's just plastic. Hard plastic. Plastic material type. that thing is vinyl. It actually weighs. So, if anything, I got the better Vault Boy figure. Oh God. All right, so let's go back to the McFarlane Toy Show and let me mute them again. That way because like I said, we're not really gonna watch this. We're just skimming through it. Talk about the Vault Boys and then some more of those movie maniacs. So they're not just stopping at figures, which is a shame because if there was one creature, one thing pulled from the show that I think should have been a figure, but I digress. You know, from a business standpoint, it doesn't make sense to do this. Is the Deathclaw. But no, he's going to be a movie maniac, which means he's going to be about this big, 6 inches, or maybe a little bit shorter. And it's a pre-pose statue, as they call it. Or, I'm sorry, pre-pose figure, a.k.a. a statue. Along with Lucy on the fridge there, mimicking her pose from season 1, I want to say. The Securitron, I think it was called. Which, of course, is indicative of where they're going in season 2. If you know, you know. And then we have, it's so redundant that they're making movie maniac figurines out of characters that have actual figures. The Ghoul and Maximus. I'm sorry, but, and I think also Hank McLean. Spoilers, by the way. They just make this figure automatically. It's like, spoilers? And on top of that, it's the same figurine, but with the head swap. They're doing the same pose. They even have the same scratches. So I thought to myself, okay, what's the movie Maniacs? I guess it makes sense since it's almost like it's one of those things where they're probably looking ahead and saying, well, we're making this as a, for lack of a better term, contractual thing. You know, are we really expecting this thing to like sell out in droves? No. So why bother making a separate brand new sculpt for Hank McLean where we could just use the Maximus body and just literally cut off the head and put on a new one? Let's just do that. Okay, so what do you got cooking for the video game figures, the proper figures? Well, we're getting 2 packs of Benny and the NCR Ranger from Fallout New Vegas. And we have this rotating shot right here. All right. $70 for that 2-pack. And you guessed it. No accessories. That's probably the worst one to stomach. No accessories. What you see in that rotating shot, hold on, I'm trying to pull out the product page. Here we go. Is what you get. $70. That's what hurts more, is that this is all you get. So you mean to tell me if we were to just ignore the base and the cards, which come with every McFarlane figure, ignoring this, each of these figures is $35, but you don't get any guns with the NCR Ranger. You don't get the pistol that Benny uses at the beginning of the game. If you play the game, you know what you're talking about. From what I hear, I personally cannot remember this, but I'm going to take people's word for it already because they probably know better than I do, saying that the chip that he's holding in his hand is actually wrong. And then on top of that, why does he look so lanky in Army? So yeah. McFarlane Toy Store, GameStop, Entertainment Earth. Let's pull these pages out. There it is, $70. Undoubtedly still available for pre-order. Jesus Christ. 70. Releasing in November. Oh, wow. It's actually in stock. Entertainment Earth already got it. In stock. Ready to go. Yeah, boys. I'll see you in clearance. And I believe we're kind of spoiling ahead here. Another 2-pack, which is this T60 armor, and her name is... They just call her the Soul Survivor. Basically, she's the female version of the Soul Survivor main character that you play as. So it really depends on how you make her look or how you make her what her name is, from Fallout 4. That's why we had all the blue and the yellows, because this is supposed to be the Fallout 4 version. But I believe, likewise, those two figurines, and that's it for $70. At least you get some added plastic with the T60. You know, you get like a chunkier figure. $70. Still available. Already in stock at Entertainment Earth. That's insane. But yeah, no accessories, no weapons, no melee or shooting weapons of any kind. No little like doodads to kind of deck out the character. And thankfully I wasn't insane, because a lot of people have been looking at these unveilings in not just the live stream. Let me see if I could pull up the chat replay. Although I don't think the chat replay even really said much. But once the stream was over, which honestly, like I said, I'm skipping ahead here because they did, obviously, it wouldn't, why would they finish the Fallout-centric episode of the McFarlane Toy Show and not talk about the current Elite Edition figure inclusions that are pulled from the Fallout property, aka the T60, which is already out, as he demonstrates right here, the T60 figure, and then the one that is either about to come out, because I actually did get an email from BBTS. I've canceled it since then because I thought about it and I'm like, you know what? No, I don't want to continually perpetuate this kind of behavior. So I canceled it. But I did get an email a little while ago from BBTS saying that the NCR Ranger Elite Edition was going to drop as well. So I guess we should say that at this point, both of these figures are out from Fallout, part of the Elite Edition wave, which means that each one's $60 a pop, but they have all the accessories. The T60 didn't look too bad in person, because I'll let you guys in on a secret. I actually did get it sent to me by Entertainment Earth. Not free. They charged me. It was a pre-order that I completely forgot about. Got it in hand, and I told myself, if I get impressed enough, maybe I'll do a review of it. Sculpt-wise, it didn't look bad, but paint-wise, it was lacking. And I thought to myself, $60, and I had some other things coming. I think around that time is when we started to get the photos of the Batman Returns wave being found in stores, and I was like, I'd rather get that 60, or I guess I should say $50 back, because they're going to take $10 for the shipping, and use it hopefully for the Batman Returns figures if I should find them. And I sent it back. I didn't open it, you know, still brand new, so they could still use it, they could still sell it, but I sent it back. So it didn't look too bad, but definitely not for $60. Like the if anything, the lighting is kind of complementing it here at the end of the live stream, and that's literally it. No new reveals, nothing, not one last thing. Even if it was at least maybe catering towards the Elite Edition, I wasn't expecting anything DC related, you know, because that's gonna take away an awful lot of the spotlight away. But at least something kind of Elite Edition related, or McFarlane Toys property related, as far as the infrastructure of the site or what their game plan was, maybe. But no, that was it. That was the wrap up. And after the wrap up of this episode, they were not necessarily, what's the word I'm looking for? Spared of criticism on the subreddit, on the action figure subreddit. People were, in fact, flaming McFarlane. McFarlane is charging $70 for this. $70, no accessories. The Ranger is a straight repaint of the Elite Edition, only, you know, pulled down. And that's another thing, too, is that both of these 2-packs are literally taking what was called the Elite Editions. And I thought to myself, okay, these are the elite of elite of elite. But you're taking the Elite Editions, stripping away details, those extra things that you're probably paying for that budget, and now you're packing them in here. I gotta be honest, it still does something subconsciously, psychologically I should say, to the concept of Elite Edition, and thinking to myself, well, I could just wait for this to hit clearance, and I got myself an NCR Ranger. I don't have to get Elite Edition. And then later on, deck him out either with the ammunitions pack or some kind of customs weapons pack from a third-party seller. We need to think about that, because now I'm a little bit more grateful that I sent back the T60 and canceled my pre-order for the Elite Edition NCR Ranger, now knowing that he's packed in here. I'm not going to get it right here because, like this subreddit post mentioned, $70. The Ranger is a repaint from the Elite Edition. Benny is 98% reuse, which I can kind of believe because I actually pulled another subreddit from the action figure of someone who took the Benny figure and overlaid it on top of the, I believe it's the Criminal Joker figure from the Three Jokers series from McFarlane Toys. And even I could have told you that, yeah, they're just using that suited body and just swapped out the head. And then, of course, repainted it with the checkerboard paint app for the jacket. Yeah, it's getting tougher and tougher to defend McFarlane. And like I said, to me, the reuse thing, I'll be like, all right, if he was like an individual release, I'll be fine with it. But when you pack him on with the NCR Ranger, who's getting diluted in quality in terms of like the paint apps, the the little airbrush detail, the weathering of the coat to make it look like real leather, and it's been dusty and all that stuff. And then on top of that, you're gonna charge $70, and we still don't have accessories. And then you do more or less the same thing with the T60, only this time it's all blue and yellow with the Soul Survivor, but again, no accessories. $70. I'm at a bit of a loss, and more comments and posts I have been turning up like this than I was expecting in the past. And we are seeing a turn of the tide against McFarlane that if I were them, I would be coming up with a game plan here. Maurice Phillips, welcome to the stream. I don't know why you changed your name there, but welcome. Yeah, and like I said, I don't know if it's like it's very likely a contractual thing, but if it's a contractual thing, then I think that McFarlane needs to stop saying things out loud when he's doing like panels or whatever. Todd himself, I'm talking about Todd, where he talks about being a private company. It's all about the optics. Like, I've been listening to some like podcasts that he's been guesting in recently on YouTube, on podcast streaming platforms, audio platforms, etc. And even that panel that he did where he was talking to investors and retailers at New York Comic Con. And frequently he brings up the concept about how he's a private company. He doesn't have to like answer to anyone. And I'm like, that's great. But when shit like this happens with the Fallout series and you're charging $70 with a figure that has with a set that has no accessories, one of the figures is very blatantly a repaint of an existing figure. You could tell right off the bat. It shouldn't constitute one towards the other. If you're doing a repaint of a figure, then that should afford you to include accessories. And the Fallout property is not the only victim of this. We just saw it recently with that Crimson, I can't remember what it's called, but it's that red Doomslayer, which is basically the Elite Doomslayer, only he doesn't have the fabric faux fur cape. He doesn't have any die-cast pieces. It's all plastic now. And then he's been stripped away of an awful lot of cool paint applications to afford it into being a singular release, but it's still being charged at like $30. He only has the shotgun and that's it. And now I'm looking at the Elite Edition going, okay, am I grateful that I at least got a taste of what the Elite Edition, could have been all about? Yeah. And I still have the figure. It's in my storage unit. But knowing that later down the line, you're going to take pre-existing Elite Editions and just, wipe them down and be like, okay, now they're $30. I'm like, well, then why have the Elite Edition? Take those resources and do something else. Am I crazy? Now, could there be a potential game plan to make amends for this fallout from the Fallout? Fallout from the Fallout, because there's definitely been some fallout here. It's not even a play on words anymore. There's been some legitimate fallout regarding their Fallout live stream and their Fallout figures. Could they make amends on that? If a leaked list is to be believed, It's possible. I'm not saying it's like a slam dunk, but it's possible. Over on the McFarlane Toys Facebook group, a couple of leaked documents have made their way over there. One of which comes from Axiom Figures, which is kind of a reliable source. Whenever he or she or they, whatever, posts these things, gotta be honest, their batting average is not too bad. So here we have one that was posted on October 21st. So I've been kind of holding on to this and kind of waiting to see what kind of develops as it's been posted. And since then, there's been some congruence. There's been some things shown on here that have shown up a couple more times in other posts. And that's what makes me think, okay, maybe where there's smoke, there's fire. And here, we have a list of some characters. And I don't know in what capacity they're going to be showing up. But you have Larfleeze, I have no idea what that is. Black Condor, which I think was touched upon, I think was shown at the New York Comic Con panel, Black Condor. Batman Damian, Batman White Lantern, Kryptonite Prop Replica 1-1. Please don't tell me that's just going to be a fucking crystal like this. Gagbuster, I don't know what that is. That sounds explicit. Starman, Shazam, Power Shazam, I don't know what that's pulled from. Black Canary Collector's Edition, I believe that's been referenced before in a document. Captain Marvel Jr. Collector Edition. Vigilante Collector Edition, so I think that one was kind of a given that eventually we were going to get, similar to the theatrical edition Peacemaker, we're probably going to get a theatrical deluxe edition Vigilante with maybe some weapons. Doesn't he have like an axe or something? The chainsaw. He's got to have the chainsaw. But he's kind of a given to be made into a figure. I'm actually kind of surprised that we haven't seen the figure up until this point. Ever since season 1. Season 1 was like 3 years ago. Supergirl first appearance. So she's going to get the first appearance treatment. Lobo number 1. Batman Hush 2. Let's pray to God he's not just using the fucking Hush book again, just repainting it. But then we get into some interesting territory. It looks like finally the deluxe theatrical edition wave is now being given the Superman treatment. The way that we were having with Batman Returns, it looks like we're now getting some checkbox being fulfilled regarding Superman. Starting with a deep cut here, but one that I'm pretty certain a lot of people were kind of, fiending for, justifiably so. Brandon Routh, Superman Returns 2006 theatrical edition. Right below that, though, you'll see that you have a theatrical edition Superman BVS 2016. Now, that one's curious because on the one hand, this would be like release number what? 3 or 4 of Cavill Superman? If anything, this shouldn't be BVS Superman. This should be Man of Steel Superman because I don't think we've had a McFarlane Man of Steel Superman. BVS Superman has been done, I think, like now 3 times. We've had the black and silver version. I believe a red and blue variant that came out around the time that the Zack Snyder cut got released. And then the cloth cape version that came with that Doomsday 2-pack, which I've lambasted. Well, the Doomsday figure I lambasted. The Superman is actually not too bad, and I like the fact that it's got the cloth cape. And then, if you want to get even more technical, we have the black and white editions that are going to be bundled with whoever pledged at that tier for the Batmobile Kickstarter or crowdfund, whatever you want to call it. So that's already like 4 or 5 editions of Cavill Superman. Give us of a BVS Cavill Superman. I think this should be Man of Steel Cavill Superman with slightly longer mullet-er hair. Slightly more muted suit with like the circle belt buckle in the front instead of the square one. In a slightly longer cape. That'd be nice. And will feel slightly fresher and still have your cake and eat it too. And pull the BVS one and just change little things on it and still keep the sculpt, the same blueprint. There you go. You have a little bit of your repaint habits, but at the same time, you're fulfilling a version that we haven't gotten yet, and not and have it be a theatrical edition. So maybe it comes with that piece that they have to inject to pull up Jor-El, or I don't know exactly what else he'll. Oh, and then the faceplates. You can do the whole faceplate thing, where he's got like a smiling face. He's got the cuffs for when he's cuffed. He's got like a smiling face for when he looks at Lois, determined standard face, angry with the yellow, with the red eyes face. Bam. So color me even more surprised when underneath we have Theatrical Deluxe Edition Superman 78. So what's that going to be? Because we technically already got Christopher Reeve Superman, except when he came out, he wasn't Theatrical Deluxe, he was Collector's Edition. And that does bring forth a bit of a fear. In fact, let's mention this last entry here. Theatrical Deluxe 7-inch Bane from The Dark Knight Rises. We've already gotten Bane twice as a Build-A-Figure, which arguably wasn't handled that greatly, and as a gold label Platinum Chase variant that came with the coat. So I'm guessing that this release here at the bottom, this Theatrical Deluxe Edition, is gonna be that same Bane, but now he's gonna come with a removable coat. He might have like a broken cowl piece for when he fights Batman. What else might he come with? Maybe the motorcycle helmet from the stock exchange scene. I don't know. But that's what kind of also feeds into a little bit of a fear that I have, especially with this mention of a Theatrical Deluxe Edition 78 Superman, because we already got 78 Superman, and he was a collector's edition with quite an awful lot of bit of accessories. Are we replacing Collector's Edition, the brand of Collector's Edition, with Theatrical Deluxe Edition, and not changing anything from within? Because for those of you who are watching me live right now, I'm getting a little nervous over the concept of the brand Theatrical Deluxe Edition. Why? Because last night, right now, I am currently halfway through unboxing the Batman Returns wave. I've unboxed Batman and Catwoman, and probably after dinner, I will unbox Max Schreck and Penguin. But I don't have to unbox them to tell you that I'm still a little iffy on the fact that these are called Deluxe Theatrical Editions. The key word there, Deluxe. Charging $35 a pop. And Max Schreck just comes with a bonus head. Catwoman comes with a rubberized whip and the little taser piece, which is just a sculpted piece of plastic. And that's it. No bonus hands. No alternate head with like her hair coming out like it does at the end of the movie. Batman comes with less accessories than he did on that standalone solo 89 Batman that came out last year that people were trying to hunt down at Targets for. He comes with even less than that. What's happening? And I'm scared, going back to that list, where is it? That this Theatrical Deluxe Edition 78 Superman is going to be a re-release for people who probably missed out on that original release. But it's going to be another release. But it's not going to be a better release. Because I'm scared that they're going to brand it Theatrical Deluxe Edition. It's going to charge $35. It's not going to come with the faceplates. Or it won't come with the alternate hands, including the hand with the little green crystal in there. Same thing with the Bane. It'll just be that version that came with the coat repackaged with maybe one or two things added, and then that's it. But if you already have the Build-A-Figure version or that Platinum Chase version, you're probably good. And this is just the thing like, hey, you don't want to pay scalping money? Pay the scalping money to me. And it hurts, because I really did want McFarlane to get better with this, but I just starting to lose a little bit of hope. But this wasn't the only leaked document. There were some others that actually came out just a few days ago. This one being a really, really big one. And if anything, it kind of shares a little bit. That's just Twitter with the McFarlane Toys post. So let me close this one. So just keep it of these two. This one's a big one, because it feeds a little bit more into Theatrical Deluxe Edition, but it has one entry, one inclusion that has been long long asked for. And it looks like we're finally getting, but with a major caveat. So starting from the top, you see that it says, like that previous leak from Axiom Figures, who, like I said, has posted documents before, and he's been kind of on the money. He's been averaging like a 90%. So, I would strongly listen to that one more so than this one, but at the same time, there's some really major overlap here that I think is a little bit on the believable side. So you have 7-inch deluxe theatrical edition Brandon Routh Superman, as mentioned before. Once again, Christopher Reeve. So it makes me wonder what's going to be different from the collector's edition unless we're stripping that away. And it kind of, like I said, gives me this vibe that from now on, any figure that is lifted from live action, whether it be a movie or a TV show, is going to be labeled Deluxe Theatrical Edition and no longer going to be called Collector's Edition. And Collector's Edition is just going to be towards comics. Maybe games. And that's it. Which I'm like, okay, cool, it's just a naming terminology, but when the naming comes with this thing of like stripping away accessories, because prior to the Batman Returns wave, the last deluxe theatrical wave was the Superman movie, right? The new 2025 James Gunn Superman movie. And out of that entire wave, the one that for sure felt deluxe theatrical was Superman himself, because he came with Crypto, alternate hands, alternate faceplates. Okay. But then and maybe in second place would be Mr. Terrific, because once again, alternate hands, faceplate, and the balls. But he didn't come with like his chair, and then most definitely he doesn't come with Crypto. You do have Lex Luthor, but I think he only came with one set of hands and the alternate heads. But you also they weren't too bad. The big stain on that wave was Ultraman, because he was labeled as Deluxe Theatrical Edition, but it was just him with hands. He didn't come with anything else. Obviously, it's too late, and it would be immensely impractical and very costly. But what would have been sick is if that Ultraman Deluxe Theatrical Edition would have been worth the money if they had included spoilers for Superman, if they had included an alternate head of the unmasked Superman clone with the long hair. And to keep it from spoiling that reveal from the movie inside the figure, it would have been in like a solid black little plastic baggie that you have to like unwrap, kind of like when you unwrap those like little gifts, those things that come in like the vending machines or the claw machines, in that kind of like plastic bag, like this tiny. And that way it doesn't spoil. You can't see through it, so you don't know what it is. And if anything, maybe on the bag it says, warning, spoilers, do not open unless you've seen the movie or whatever, and include that in. But I understand the cost of manufacturing the little baggie, the cost of manufacturing the head sculpt, all brand new pieces. I get it. Would have been sick and would have established a nice little form of trust going forward with the Deluxe Theatrical Edition wave. But now here we are, and I'm looking at some of these return entries, Batman Returns entries, and seeing, like I said, Max Shrek only coming with the alternate head, but no hands, no nothing else, no like Christmas gift or whatever. I'm like, yeah, it's difficult to ignore. So that's why I look at the Christopher Reeve here, and I'm like, what's going to be different about it? What's going to be different about Christopher Reeve? What's going to be different about Henry Cavill? Like I said, I'm hoping that at the last minute, they're going to retroactively overhaul this guy to look more like he did in Man of Steel as opposed to BVS. Because we've already gotten plenty of BVS or Justice League Henry Cavill Superman figures. Then in the middle, it looks like our next big Deluxe Theatrical Edition, which makes complete total sense with contractual ties to the DCU currently. It would be the Superman movie. So you're going to have the Millie Alcock Supergirl. Did I say Superman? Supergirl movie. Deluxe Theatrical Edition. New movie, of course. Lobo, played by Jason Momoa. Supergirl movie, of course. Lobo's bike included. So this is all going to be basically one big wave. And then it doesn't look like it's going to be a collector's edition, but on her own, it looks like we are getting a little bit more of CW representation, and the Melissa Benoit Supergirl is going to get her own figure. Again, it doesn't look like it's going to be a collector's edition or deluxe theatrical edition, but she is finally getting a brand new figure. But I'm sorry. No one's really paying attention to that right now. They're paying attention to the bottom here. According to this, and according to some people saying that some retailers that, like, for example, this guy's saying that never heard of Infinite Toys before. They look to be based in Mexico. Some people were saying that some of these retailers are trusted and have called it before on certain figures, saying that, yeah, they are coming through. According to this retailer, and to this page right here, this document, Jack Nicholson Joker is finally coming. Sorta. In parentheses, it says right here, 7-inch deluxe theatrical edition 1989 Joker, Jack Nicholson inspired, quote unquote, with removable hat. So I guess they waited it out, and finally they bit the bullet and said, you know what, I guess our only alternative, since it doesn't look like the rights are coming, it doesn't look like we were able to come to an agreement with the Nicholson estate, they finally said, screw it, we're going to make a Nicholson Joker, but it's just not going to have his likeness. And we're telling you right now, from the get-go, don't expect a strong Nicholson likeness. And the fact that it's called Jack Nicholson Inspired means that, if anything, he's probably going to have like a comic book look to his head sculpt in terms of the way that his face is molded. But he's just going to have the paint application that he had in the movie. But in terms of the head sculpt and the likeness, he's probably going to look like he did in the comic. In whatever comic story arc was happening at the time in '89. Or, well, no, I was going to say, wasn't there an 89 Batman movie comic adaptation? But that would probably be redundant, and it'll probably bring up the same problems, because I think in that comic, they did utilize Keaton's likeness, Nicholson's likeness, even Kate Beckinsale's likeness. I mean, I was like Kate Beckinsale. What was her name? What was her name? Vicky Vale. Not Kate Beckinsale. What was her name? You guys know what I'm talking about. Jesus Christ, what was her name? It's bugging me. Hold on. Kim Basinger. I don't know why I said Kate Beckinsale. Kim Basinger. Good Lord, that was terrible. And then I have this separate post on Reddit on the Articulated Plastics subreddit saying, love that Joker. New rumored DC listings imply McFarlane Toys Technical Theatrical Edition. So we have a second source corroborating, saying, yeah, it looks like it might be coming in the coming months. So yeah. It looks like it's happening, but like I said, I think that was probably the compromise that they needed to nail, is to basically make the bulk of the figure in terms of, if anything, what's a bit more on the believable side, they probably have the blueprints and the prototype for the body ready to go. They probably said, hey, we've scoured the internet, we looked at what people have been saying, and we know that the demand has been incredibly, incredibly high for Nicholson Joker. Ever since we even touched the 89, probably not even the 89 series, when they touched Keaton's Batman, when they touched Keaton's Batman for the Flash movie back in 2023, I think people immediately were like, 89 wave. So the 89 suit from that Keaton was wearing from that movie, but then Nicholson Joker, Vicky Bale, the henchman, and then of course vehicle-wise the Batmobile and the Batwing, which we technically have not gotten the Batwing yet. We've gotten the Flash Keaton Batwing, but not the 89 Keaton Batwing, technically. And it would be nice to have one that's not super expensive, because Jazz Inc. love what they do, and I love their approach to how they manufacture the products, but they really are a very specific niche, and unfortunately, that niche needs to have deep pockets, even for the 112 format. Because even I'm looking at the Kickstarter for that 112 Batwing, and I'm like, $400, $400, and it looks like I'm not the only one, because they really do need some backers. So I'll keep monitoring that to see how that turns out. But my best guess, if they were smart, which like I said, I have no doubts that this is what they're doing, or this is what they've done. They probably have this body ready to go. The only thing they haven't done is the head sculpt, because obviously they need licensing rights for the likeness. And Nicholson, along with his stay, is like, no, I'm done. And probably through very consistent negotiations, persistent even, they probably, I think these rumors going around about these retailers saying, hey, it looks like it's coming, but we did get some information in the titling of the release, and the official title of this release has in parentheses Jack Nicholson inspired. So my best guess is that, like I said, they're probably going to use a head sculpt that is lifted from the comics, like Silver Age Joker, or whatever, like I said, series was going on in the 80s. Or, and this would be wild, they release it without a head sculpt, so that then you can get like a third party to develop one for you. I don't think they'll do that. I think they'll be kind of like, just to see an empty headless head there in the box. But I also would not necessarily rule it out. Like I said, I know it's a wild take, and I don't necessarily want them to do that, but at the same time, we can't really rule out that scenario. I don't want them to do it, but we can't rule it out. So what do you guys think of this list that includes potential revisits to Superman properties that need to be checked off, including the Brandon Routh Superman, potentially a Man of Steel Cavill Superman as opposed to a BVS one, although it sounds like they might be retreading BVS again. The perplexing nature of a revisit to Christopher Reeve, only this time as a deluxe theatrical edition as opposed to collector's edition like it was last year, and whether or not that's going to muddy the terminology of the line, of the branding of what's constitutes as collector's edition and deluxe theatrical edition, and which one gets your best bang for your buck. What do you guys think about that? Because this could redeem them after this fallout with the Fallout figures. But at the same time, there's still some questions lingering. Mr. Twin Fraser, welcome to the stream. Skelly Bones, do you think it's going to be the comic vigilante or from the show? I think it's got to be the show. Why would they tackle comic vigilante? There's been quite an awful lot of demand already for Peacemaker show vigilante. I don't think they would flounder that. I don't know why my throat's going out sooner than it usually does. JM Herrera, welcome to the stream. Don't spoil it here, but did you vote in the recent polls on the chat? I did vote for one like a few weeks ago, but not the recent ones. That chat is going by so quick. Hopefully it's not the dust in here that's just screwing up my voice, because Jesus. Yeah, I was not in a good state to do a live stream today, but I'd rather do the live stream today than tomorrow, because like I said, I know that tomorrow's Halloween. Plenty of you guys are probably going to have plans, so I didn't really want to overstep that. Nicholson's stunt double? What does his stunt double look like? Why do you say if you know, you know? Gary Crampton? I don't get it. Maybe they can get this guy. Maybe they can make the figure out of this guy. Hold on. Norman Dessing. Jack Nicholson lookalike. They should get this guy. Stupid. Oh, so that was a rant. Oh, yeah, the Spaceballs reference. Sorry, I didn't know that was a... I don't know why I didn't catch the space... It's funny because I've seen the movie and I know that line, but I didn't connect the two. So, yeah, I'm really hoping that... And it's funny because with the Fallout figures that came out of that stream, including those reveals of those 2-packs, I'm thinking to myself, like, if I'm not mistaken, you should be good on that license too, right? It's mostly the DC one that's getting a little contested, even though recently he put out a statement on one of the podcasts saying that the license is going to be extended somewhat into like the end of 2026. So we should still be getting McFarlane DC Multiverse figures until December of 2026. But let's say it is expiring then. You still have the Fallout stuff. You still have the video game stuff in general. That's not the stuff that you should be cheaping out on. And yet you are. And now I'm looking at this leak list. And even though, there's a big sunshiny spot with this whole Jack Nicholson theatrical edition release, there's a couple of other things included here that I'm looking at and going, what does this mean? Because right now, the deluxe theatrical edition concept is starting to lose me, if I'm being honest. At first I thought it was cool, but then I'm like, okay, so it's just collector's edition, but less, if anything, but for the same price. It's a lot of parallels happening where the parallel between this and the video game industry, where like recently, for those of you who don't know, Game Pass raised their prices, but nothing's changing. You're not adding perks. You're not adding any other cool benefits. I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? Let me pull up my photos here because I took a screenshot. So, JM, I don't know if you saw... Also, there was really, really quick. A few days ago, this was also posted on the McFarlane Toys subreddit. Don't ask me what this writing is right here. I don't know what it is. As well as like the prices, but apparently it's yet another leaked list from a retailer, from a supposed retailer, I think. It says leaks for the upcoming figures. Just saw these from a previous Facebook post. And it looks like it's sort of regurgitating the same stuff that we've already covered, just organized a little bit differently. So, of course, you have DC Multiverse, Basic, Black Condor, Starman, Gagbuster, Larfreeze, Shazam, Batman related. So, Batman Hush 2, which we mentioned before. Damian Batman from Bethlehem, I guess. Batman 90s. White Lantern Batman. Batman and Justice Gang. Then Collector's Edition, there's that Freddie Freeman, Captain Marvel Jr., so probably comic-based. Black Canary, Vigilante. Oh, no. Yo, I think... who called it? Skelly Bones, I think you're right. It's not going to be the show Vigilante. It's going to be comics. It says All-Star Squadron. It doesn't say Peacemaker Show. Why would you make the comic Vigilante and not the Peacemaker Show Vigilante? Unless you turned heel when the announcement was made that there's currently no plans for season 3, and you probably thought, why make Vigilante from the show if the show is kind of potentially over now? I know James Gunn technically said never say never to the concept of a season 3, but right now he just doesn't have those plans. Damn it. The Joker doesn't say which Joker it is. And then there's that Lobo and Supergirl. Although those are not from the movies. I think that's first appearances. Mongol versus Kryptonian suit Superman. I'm guessing that's a 2-pack. And then here, I don't know why they have to put these cutouts, but it looks like here's kind of shedding light on the whole deep dive into more Superman cinematic stuff as their deluxe theatrical wave. So Superman Returns, just like I mentioned before. BVS Superman, although, like I said, it shouldn't be BVS. It should be this one, Man of Steel. It shouldn't be BVS. It should be Man of Steel. 78 Superman, which we've already gotten. Joker Dark Knight. What else are we going to do? Oh, no. I just realized. He's going to have a cloth cape like they did recently with the Crisis on Infinite Earths Page Puncher Joker. Watch. Fucking watch. That Joker is going to be... because this is the first mention of this Joker. This is the second mention of this Bane. They're both going to have cloth capes. I mean, cloth coats. Bane is probably going to have the same coat that he had in that Platinum. Only he's probably going to have 1 or 2 extra accessories to warrant a re-release as a deluxe theatrical edition. This Joker, on the other hand, he's probably going to have... They might bring back the stack of money that he had in his Build-A-Figure Wave release. He might have... the coat is probably going to be not only made out of that wool, like the penguin over here, but it might be... Okay, you know what? I'll say this. If it's removable and you can swap his hands or his arms to then have the pulled back sleeve look so that he can look like the jail cell version, maybe. But even then, I wouldn't blame anybody if they're sick and tired of seeing this Joker right here, because we've gotten now Dark Knight Joker from McFarlane. As much as I love that Joker, I will admit, this is what, release number 3? Because we had the original, 4-ish. We have the original Build-A-Bane from the Dark Knight Trilogy wave. We had the Jail Cell box set. That was a McFarlane Toy Store Gold Label exclusive. We had the Sonar variant, where he's like blue and translucent. This would be number 4. Actually, no, this would be number 5, because number 4 was that Jokerized version they tried to do. Yes, a Jokerized Joker. So you can Joker while you Joker. Ah, God damn it. I'm losing my goddamn mind. Maybe it's Nurse Joker? So I heard that there's something going on where both Warner Brothers and the Heath Ledger estate will not give the rights to make figures out of him in the nurse outfit from the movie. I could be wrong, but I remember, and this is a perfect segue, since this was brought up in Will Foxification's stream when he was talking about upcoming artisan releases regarding the Joker from both either Inart or Hot Toys. And I think somebody was bringing up Nurse Joker, but I think one time he said that they don't want to do that. I don't know how true that is. I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't know if it's like a integrity thing. I don't know what it is. But apparently, like, that's the only one that they're like, no, don't do that. Like I said, I don't know if it has anything to do with the outfit or like ethics. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Like I said, I know that it could go in a very dark and twisted territory there, but I don't know exactly what the case is, why they wouldn't do that. But yeah, I heard rumblings that they don't want to license out his look from the hospital scene for some weird reason. It's an iconic image of him walking away, one that is embedded in cinematic history because of the great improv skills by Heath Ledger when the bombs weren't working. But Yeah, that's what I heard. Because otherwise, if that wasn't the case, from what I hear, again, strictly rumors, take it with a grain of salt. But if it wasn't for that hindrance, that licensing hindrance, we actually would have already had some like kind of artisan prototype, at least, of Nurse Joker from the Dark Knight circulating. And also, all this talk about like deluxe theatrical editions of these Supermen, like the Brandon Routh and possible Man of Steel, revisit the Christopher Reeve. Why? I'm gonna say it. Why not do what you did with Batman and do a box set, Ultimate Movie box set? Granted, you're gonna be entering some tumultuous territory, which is probably why they didn't do it. Reasonably, I kind of answer my own question. You're gonna enter some murky territories because that would require to make a figure out of the George Reeve. No, I'm sorry, George Reeves, because he's with the S. Christopher Reeve without the S. You're gonna have to make a George Reeve figure, and so that would require the licensing of that. And I know that the circumstances revolving around the actor George Reeves and his connection to Superman is a little controversial, which is why his appearance in the Flash movie made controversial waves. So I'm thinking Todd and the McFarlane team over there and the design team and legal team is probably like, we don't want to touch that. We don't want to get a headache over that. Skip. And then that would also require to make a Dean Cain McFarlane Toys Superman figure. Dean Cain is not necessarily being seen in the fondest of lights right now. So you only have to work with Christopher Reeve, Henry Cavill, Corn Sweat, Brandon Routh. That's only 4. So you can do a 4-pack. But I know that if you were to do an Ultimate Movie 6-pack, it would have to be 6. And there's the 6. Dean Cain. I guess maybe you could do Tom Welling. But I know that next to the other guys, he won't necessarily look all that glamorous since he never... I'm going to say he never wore the suit. Yes, I know the final episode. He wasn't wearing the suit. They green screened that shit in, okay? Not only did they green screen that shit in, but it's the Superman Returns suit. They couldn't afford to make a new suit for that finale. What the hell? He just wore the Brandon Routh suit. And you only saw like his head, and then the rest of the body's fucking CG. He never wore the suit. No. The only thing he wore was that red leather jacket. So that's probably the most that they would be able to do with a Tom Welling figure. And he'll probably look out of place. So I don't know. I don't know. You know, I guess there could be some workarounds for an Ultimate Movie 6-pack, but they're just opting not to do it. But speaking of will foxification, again, touching a little bit of base on some of the things that were talked about with Inart regarding the 1/6 and 1/12 scale lines. Like, how long are you going to be there? All right, sorry. Mom was snooping around in the hallway. I can hear noises, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And then as soon as I stopped talking, she walked away. I'm like, "Yeah, you're snooping. I'm sorry, but get the hell out of here." You want me to stop asking about expiration dates on the food you cook? Then stop snooping around. Anyways, so going back to the Inart thing, briefly touch upon it because I gotta be honest, I'm a little unprepared on that live stream. I don't even have it pulled up because I can't remember where he said this. But one of the takeaways that I took away from that, one of the takeaways from that live stream that Johnny was mentioning, Johnny, the representative at Inart, regarding the 1/6 and the 1/12, because I will admit an awful lot of the live stream was a lot of people in the chat saying, "Are you guys gonna make this? Are you guys gonna make that?" And after a while, I'm like, yeah. If I was Johnny, I would get annoyed of how much we could say yes to this, no to that. We can't talk about this. We can't talk about that in terms of licensing, what's being worked on right now, what's under NDA, what can't be confirmed for very strict legal reasons. But one of the things that stood out to me was how he was regarding the 1/12 line. And one cool thing is him mentioning that an awful lot of video game properties are probably going to be reserved for 1/12 because of how much resource allocation there would be required in 1/6, which on the one hand is like, okay, yeah, so a smaller canvas means we are probably going to be listening a little bit of the detail, but at the same time, despite having only one release thus far, which is definitely a criticism that I've expressed, where I'm like, wait, we got one release, but the timetable could be a little bit better. That one release is a 9 out of 10, and that's that Christian Bale Batman. That sculpt on both the body, the head, the likeness, the paint applications, for 1/12, it's great. So, there were mentions about like Master Chief from Halo, Devil May Cry, a couple of other Kratos, etc. And Johnny said that they would favor that a bit more fondly in the 1/12 scale format. So how would you guys feel about 1/12 video game figures coming out of Inart, outside of what we've already seen? Because unfortunately, not much more information was shed on the figures that were shown at Wonderfest. So it was just a matter of like regurgitation as far as the Dark Knight Returns that was showcased there, some of the Arkham stuff, some of the video game stuff, of course, some of the live action stuff, the competition between the two BVS Batmans and Supermans, the Pattinson Batman, the Anne Hathaway Catwoman from Dark Knight Rises, the unpainted prototypes like the Alex Ross Superman or Bane and Joker coming down the pipeline. But not much else was said in that stream because, like I said, it was very 1/6 scale format, 1/6 scale focused. A few mentions of the 1/12 regarding more fig for like some of the base stuff where you can like create like a decrepit building as like a diorama sort of approach, or the stuff with 1/12 proper, which is going to be tackling the existing IPs. Like I said, the one thing that kind of stood out to me and went, oh, that's kind of interesting, is how the video game stuff would be reserved for 1/12. The stuff that they know is very niche and probably won't sell like crazy if they do 1/6, but in 1/12, at the offerings of like $60 to $70, who knows? Maybe I might start pivoting the channel, in that direction. Maybe just cover 1/12 stuff, even if it's outside of Batman, outside of Spider-Man. I mean, that'd be crazy. That'd be interesting to kind of look at. Now, that was the brief Inart thing that I wanted to talk about. Now, let's shift on over to LPZZ. Now, with LPZZ, I admittedly came a little bit more prepared, which I think is a testament to also how prepared LPZZ/UP Find Yours is versus Inart. Because, like I said, that's the one criticism that I have towards Inart, which is that they need to be a little bit more transparent with relaying information. I appreciated that interview with Will Foxification. I would be down to do my own form of interview with Inart, with Johnny from Inart or some kind of representative from Inart, and talk to them and be like, okay, what's the information that we can kind of extrapolate? And I definitely want it to be an interview that's more than just, are you guys making this? Are you guys making that? Because it gets trite after a while. But I would like to shed some more information from that 1/12 focus in relation to like the workflow. What's the strategy to get more releases out? What are certain strategies or methods that you guys are taking to make sure that the quality that you guys were able to achieve with Christian Bale Batman will also land on future releases and not get botched out, because you're only as good as your like second release, not your first release. Your first release could be like a 10 out of 10, but if your second release is like a 6 out of 10, then I'll be like, all right, so which one am I gambling with on release number 3? Is it going to be the 6 or is it going to be the 10? And if it's another 6, the majority of people are going to be like, all right, I'm out. I'm just going to stick with my Christian Bale Batman, and that's it. That's how every toy company works. Hell, when you watch a show, the pilot could be amazing, but if that second episode is like, then you're going to be like, oh, God, are the rest of them going to be like this? But if that first episode is good, and then that second episode is even better, I'll be like, okay, you got me hooked. There's a really stronger chance that you guys are going to be consistent with this. So that's something that I would really like to get more information about, is how they're going to work going forward into 2026, because I can tell that with literally just 2 months, October's done. So we got November, December, and I know that entering the new year, we have Chinese New Year, and they take Chinese New Year very seriously over there at Inart, to where they don't work on anything for like 2 weeks. So it makes me wonder how much output, whether it be in the form of information or product, are they really going to be able to nail before year's end for 1/12th? Or are they still just focusing on 1/6? That's the question that I had. And it was getting a little murky in that Will Foxification interview. That's why I would really like to do my own interview to shed light on 1/12th to see what they can do. I did get in touch with Johnny. He did say, however, that right now they're a little bit busy with stuff. They're trying to iron out certain things before the end of the year, just like I mentioned right now. And they're hoping that after those things get ironed out, then we can sit and chat in some kind of interview capacity. But for now, they're busy. They're busy. So I'll simply just wait for now. Which is why, like I said, I'm shifting my focus on to LPZZ, who have a fan chat that I'm a part of. JM Herrera knows what I'm talking about. I'm part of this fan chat. And admittingly, it goes by a little quick, sometimes in really strange directions that even I was not expecting. But some information has been posted there by not only UP Find Yours / LPZZ themselves directly, but also by some other members of their design team, of their research team, that's trying to get as much feedback as possible from fans of the brand that are part of this chat group, including myself, so that they know exactly which figures to prioritize going forward, what things they're looking for in the product as far as quality, as far as articulation, functionality. And there's a couple of messages that were posted that, frankly, I needed to screenshot. So let me make sure that these are the correct screenshots, and I'm not showing anything crazy. And I verified that I could show some of this stuff, and from what I can tell, they said, yeah, you can talk about it. It's fine. So this is the first one. These bubbles right here really stood out to me that I'm like, let me shed some light on this, because this is kind of interesting. This is directly from LPZZ, saying, "Hi everyone, I've checked all the polls and thank you all for helping to make sure our decisions for future projects won't go wrong. The scaling for game and comic will remain the same, but might have slightly changes to make figures more comfortable to play with. The movie line will become shorter due to the opinion of movie line designers, but since one of them is the designer of Inart 1/12th Bale Batman, so the upcoming TDK Dark Knight figures will match the scale and details of Inart Bale Batman." I'm wondering if that is I can't tell by the wording here if that's a reference to simply just the product of the Inart Bale Batman, or the fact that one of the designers from Inart did go to LPZZ, because I do know that happened. So it could be both. And then the second message here, and then about the votes for characters, I can't make promises, but let's say most of them that you guys wanted are already on the list of future projects. For example, I don't see there's any reason for us to stop digging the Absolute line. Absolute Batman, Absolute Superman, Absolute Wonder Woman more like, and maybe the Rogues Gallery of Absolute Batman villains. So that super yoked out Bane, that dinosaur looking lizard, that upcoming demon looking Joker. it's almost looking like a given that that's probably going to be tackled. And that's good to see. LPZZ, like I said, speaking of LPZZ, I didn't screenshot this, but they have corresponded in the chat that apparently right now the machine is flowing. It's not instantaneous, but the machine has begun to ship out Deathstroke. So it's possible that maybe within, I'll be realistic and say maybe 2 to 3 weeks, maybe about a month-ish or so, within the next month, probably halfway through November or so, I shall be getting emails from Toys Metaverse saying that LPZZ/UP Flying Viewers Deathstroke is ready and I got to ship it out. And it's already making its way to hands for collectors that live either in China or near China. I know Action Display, I think is his name, on YouTube. He already put out his review. So I'm thinking that's probably going to be my litmus test from now on. Like whenever Action Display puts out his review of a figure, that means it's probably nearing release for someone in the States like me. Kind of like similar to when either Justin's Collection or Figure Hideout post their reviews of certain Hot Toys figures. If they post their videos, then that means that not only has it released, but it's probably starting to trickle out. So anyways, going back to the screenshots, I have one more here. Yeah. Okay, so this is the first bubble I already talked about, mentioning the Absolute line. And then there was a third and final bubble saying, but also there's a bad news about New 52. Characters from New 52 are all retired due to Warner Brothers' response, so we can't make any New 52 characters. But let me know if you're interested in Rebirth characters. That's interesting. So Warner Brothers, and to an extent this kind of makes sense, Warner Brothers pretty much told them, hey, we're not trying to put focus or light on New 52 because obviously there's a new Matt Fraction, Jorge Jimenez series of Batman comics. You got the Absolute Batman, Absolute Superman. There's other things happening right now in comics for these characters that New 52 is just wrapped and behind. Let's not focus on that right now. I am optimistically but potentially naively thinking that maybe this is a never say never situation where it's like maybe later if you ask them again, they'll probably say, okay, now make a New 52 Superman, New 52 Batman figure. But for now, they don't want to have that light be, which is probably why they were so gun-ho about saying, yeah, keep making Absolute figures, because that's the current comic going on right now. Keep making Absolute. And apparently Rebirth was so successful that even Warner Bros. is like, yeah, Rebirth is done, but go ahead and make some Rebirth figures. It's strange how those politics work, but yeah. So that was some information from LPZZ directly. And I did take one more screen grab. This was, how long ago was this? This was the 23rd, so exactly a week ago. But one last screenshot that I took 2 days ago was this one from someone that's part of the design team or someone that's part of the team over at LPZZ/UPF regarding the Arkham Knight Batmobile. Also, at everyone who asked about the Arkham Knight Batmobile, I'm able to share some news. I think this is the big one that I wanted to share, so I'm glad I'm able to share it. I can't tell how it works, but the Batmobile being from the Arkham Knight games socially, it will be, I think there was some mistranslation there. It will be able to transform. I'm pretty sure you guys get the picture. AKA tank mode. The Batmobile that we saw in those photos, of which I think I screen grabbed. I put it in the thumbnail, but let me see if I could bring one up. Arkham Knight Batmobile. Here we go. It's going to be a little blurry. There we go. This one. Obviously, this is just a mock-up. It's a prototype, so it's probably like a very static, solid, unpainted piece. But once they actually go through the trouble of, making the wheels move, paint applications, etc., they're practically going to bake in articulation to make sure that these pieces deploy and this piece pops out, or maybe it's a plastic lid of some kind. They remove it and then it'll have a separate turret piece that you can then mount on top to then turn it into the tank mode, like it does in the game. That's what we were asking, and it looks like they're going to be able to fulfill on that. Sick. Your move, McFarlane. Whether they're going to move at all is yet to be determined. That's what I will say. But to me, my main takeaway, the thing that I really truly do appreciate, was just how much communication there was in that fan chat. And I don't see myself leaving that fan chat anytime soon, because like I said, it's doing good work of constantly talking to the audience, constantly asking like, what do you guys want to see, and see how much information they could provide, to the point where I think that's becoming easier than doing simple email exchanges. So yeah, LPZZ, if you're watching this, or if you catch wind of this, I just want to say thank you, appreciate you, and it's good to see that here we are at the end of the year, or kind of barreling towards the end of the year. We already got one set release out there, even though it's a little bit unfortunate that we're not seeing a second print, quote unquote, second release, second manufacturing of it, which is the Arkham Knight Batman. I'm hoping that maybe later, when there's like a lull while you guys are waiting for like licensing or whatever, you guys should definitely give people a second chance to get that Arkham Knight Batman. But I understand that now you're moving on to Deathstroke. Deathstroke's already starting to get released for certain people out in the in the Asian areas, Asian markets, and I'm banking that maybe in the next 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4, people here in the States like myself will start getting emails about our pre-orders getting fulfilled. And then, hell, maybe a couple weeks after that, we'll start seeing that Batman Who Laughs start to get released. We'll see. But this is dope. That, and then the Justice League collaboration project, because I'm certain that's probably going to come. So, yeah. Also, Conflict in 1922. I have no idea if I said hi to you, but hi. They're just taking feedback, yeah. But just the fact that they're listening, we can tell that they're reading the feedback, and it's not just going on deaf ears like with other companies. On occasion, like McFarlane Toys, sometimes they do kind of skirt things, and I'm like, guys, pay attention. Sometimes. Most of the time, it's Marvel Legends. I think Marvel Legends has a harsher track record of not only skirting by the feedback, but sometimes even making fun of the feedback. Sometimes Dan and Dwight, like I said, have this very condescending attitude where I'm like, guys, what the fuck? We're giving you money. Like, stop acting like this. But yeah, Skelly Bones. Supposedly the intention is to have it transform. Okay. That was honestly pacemaker dependent. 7. Hello, I'm from Italy, the best Red Hood action figure forever. Thanks. You're asking me, like, what's the best Red Hood action figure? Well, I'll tell you right now, I don't really own too many Red Hood figures. So in regards to what I have, it would probably be that Big Bad Toy Store exclusive, only because of how solid he feels, and I like how the coat feels, even though he's a black and white variant, so his skin on his forearms is not the actual flesh tone. It's like a gray. If you're able to look past that, good evening, David. Good to have you in there. Yeah, thank you, Conflict. But yeah, if you're able to look past that, but it's a BBTS exclusive, so right now the only way to get it is the third part aftermarket. If somebody's selling it, BBTS is sold out of it. What else? I'm certain there's some solid DC Direct figures, but I don't own them, so I can't really speak for them, to be honest. Yeah, I'm just being honest. As far as what I own, it's predominantly McFarlane. But there's a part of me that kind of wishes I would have owned some of the DC Direct stuff so I can compare and give you an honest opinion. Good for Sugar Daddy. Yeah, because I'm also wondering how much that Batmobile... That's the thing. Hearing that it's going to transform is like, yes, sick, awesome. And then once that wears down, you're like, that means it's going to cost more. But I want it. So, yeah, I have to take the good with the bad there. All right, guys. As you can hear from my voice, it's starting to strip, quite honestly. And like I said, I wasn't even gonna have too much energy for the live stream today, but I knew I needed to get back into the habit of live streaming, and I wanted to do it today instead of tomorrow because I know that tomorrow's Halloween. I have a Halloween themed video going up tomorrow, so look for that. It's practically done. Just need to add music to it, and it's set. And I'll leave it rendering when I head on to the gym. But yeah, so I have that video going up tomorrow. That's Halloween themed. That's why I didn't want to do a stream, and also because I'm pretty certain that most of you have plans tomorrow. Hopefully those plans include watching my video. But I digress. So I'm gonna go ahead and jet on out of here, and plus it's already 4:30 here Pacific time. It's time for dinner. Starting with how much even a Batflex? They said around 200 for the Batmobile. Oh, that collaborative project, yeah, it's gonna be like 200 to 250, and then some stores are charging a little bit more, but that's because they're factoring in the tariff. That, you know, obviously there's gonna be tariffs. The tariff situation is still happening, to the point where now I have to rethink what I'm gonna pre-order from Hobby Link Japan now, since I just found out that Hobby Link Japan's got a new policy to where if you pre-order something, you better make sure you can pay it, otherwise you're shit out of luck. Because you can't cancel. Which, if anything, is also indicative of where they're at money-wise. It's like, okay, now you can't even cancel my order? Because the tariff is, you know, too crazy. Because there was an order that I got charged for, and I was like, do I really want that? And I came to the decision that I don't want it. So I'm like, all right, let me email them, cancel it. And they're like, yeah, and technically they did send out the email, but I thought it was like a reiteration of the previous email that I got before regarding the discounted price for FedEx shipping. But no, it was also a change in a policy to where they said that, hey, after this date, at the beginning of October, like October 4th or something like that, if a pre-order gets fulfilled and enters your warehouse, that's it. You can either wait until there's a better option and God forbid these tariffs get lifted, or ship it and find a way to pay it off because you can't cancel. And I tried canceling that item and they were like, yeah, we can't cancel it. So that charge you got it. And if you want that money back, ship it. And then when you get it in hand, don't open it, list it, and put it up online to get sold. I'm like, oh my God. So this, I guess, comes back full circle to what I was mentioning at the beginning of the stream, where, like I said, this stuff is getting just a little out of hand for both the imported stuff and for the stuff here in the States that, like I said, if there was one pillar of the collecting hobby that I'm probably going to have to eliminate here soon, it'll probably be Hot Toys, because selling the Hot Toys I know will bring forth a level of income that will at least make things a bit more digestible and sustainable. But also to keep up with said Hot Toys and own it all is just way too expensive that it just doesn't make any legitimate goddamn sense to do so. And it's heartbreaking because so many of these figures I really wish I could have owned. So to realize that that won't be the case anymore, well, it is what it is, right? So yeah, Skelly Bones, J.M. Herrera, Conflict 1922, Pacemaker, Dependente, Mr. Twin Frazier, Maurice Phillips, aka Packrat, CM Brock, I think showed up a little earlier. Yeah, I did see your comment, man. Spartan 107, and anybody else who lurked in the chat and watched the chat. Oh, I'm sorry, lurked in the chat and watched the stream. Thank you guys for contributing and being part of the stream. If you're catching this on the VOD, thank you for sticking it all the way until the very end. I'll see which segments are worth of segmenting out and posting as its own separate topical video, either Sunday or Monday, somewhere around there. Probably the Jack Nicholson segment will probably be worthwhile talking about as its own like video thing. Yeah. In the meantime, though, like I said, I'll be working on the Batman Returns Wave review. I've already unboxed 2 figures. I'm going to be unboxing 2 more after I eat dinner and playing with them for the rest of the night tonight, all day tomorrow. Saturday, I'll film 2 of them, and then Sunday, the other 2. Work on the review, and hopefully they'll go up not this weekend, obviously not this weekend, but probably next weekend, very likely. And then after that, think about what's going to come out afterwards. Because I have what I like to call the mustache Batman, the Earth Tube Batman with the mustache guard, the Batman Incorporated, Peacemaker, the deluxe edition, came in from BBTS, so I got that. And then there's some like Hot Toys related videos where they're kind of like Hot Toys reviews, except there are figures that have already been out, but I've been paying them off little by little, but they're so far removed from their release date that it's like, okay, I can't do a conventional review. They have to be reviewed in a different format, in a different way. So there's some things that I have ideas on, and I want to tackle those Hot Toys videos before I decide to sell off the Hot Toys figures to then get some income in, because like I said, things are starting to get a little shitty. So unless, like I said, I end up landing a job or my girlfriend ends up landing a job, which we're both looking, yeah. I really wish I could end the stream in a better mood, but it is what it is. I'll just try to distract myself with both food, gym, and action figures. And maybe video games, but even video games I'm starting to lose my touch on. Like, there's been some games I've been playing and I'm like, 12-year-old me would have loved this. 34-year-old me, I don't know why, I'm just not feeling it. I'm like, what is wrong with me? So that's been a little bit on the depressing side, but I'm going to aim for a stronger night. Hope you guys have also a great night, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.